For more on the wild elephant herd, we are joined in Beijing Professor Lu Zhi, Professor of Conservation Biology from Peking University. Also from Beijing, Professor Zhang Li from the Department of Ecology with the Beijing Normal University. He's also a member of the World Conservation Union's Asian Elephant Specialist Group. Welcome to both of you. Thank you so much. I thought you would be in Yunnan chasing the wild elephants, no? Professor Liu?
No, better not.
Yes. And what about for you, Mr. Zhang? Fascinating news, I guess, for you.
Well, it's really not good news for people, but maybe it's good news for elephant conservation in future.
Yes, that's very true. Tell me more about, how do you react to the story at the very beginning, Professor Liu?
Yeah, like many other public, the public. In the beginning, I was curious why these elephants decided to move up to north, which has not been the habitat for elephants for many, many years. As you know that historically, elephants had distributed in a quite large range in China up to the Yellow River range. So I had a romantic guess that these elephants had the ancestral memory, so they moved up. But it's it's a story, it's novel, it's fiction.
Yeah.
In reality, these elephants actually may be troublesome to many people, especially the people along their travel routes. But why do they come to the non-habitat region to fetch for food? So that raised a big question for me. So I began to study with my students and colleagues to try to understand why. This is not easy. We still don't understand. If we may communicate directly with elephants, then we may have a better answer. But so far we're guessing, right?
Right.
We're guessing they are searching for new habitats, or we're guessing when the population at the local local habitats now begin to expand. So naturally they try to search for new habitats, new territory. Suitable habitats in the current elephant range has been declining. All these are signals, maybe signals for this elephant to move out. In fact, there has been many groups of elephants moved out from their original habitats in past 10, 20 years. It has been a phenomenon for a while. But this time, this move has been more significant, more longer distance. It's obvious that in the north, there isn't suitable habitat for elephants. There are more people than elephants, more cities than forests. So these elephants won't find a suitable habitats in their direction now, moving toward. So how to persuade them to move back,
quote unquote,
a difficult question.
It is a difficult question. Professor Zhang, you've been working with wild animals, particularly wild elephants, for decades. Tell me more about your assessment. Nobody knows for sure exactly what happened, but your assessment so far.
In recent 20 years, I think I found that the China population of wild elephant increased from 140 something back to 1970s. Now it's up to about 300 individuals in the wild. This is the achievement of a significant achievement of wildlife conservation in the past 2-3 decades. But on the other hand, our study also learned that the suitable habitat in Xishuangbanna particularly declined about 40% in the field. That means, one hand, we have an increasing elephant population, but on the other hand, their habitat, their suitable elephant habitat in the field declined dramatically in the past years. This is a typical conflict between the wildlife conservation and rural economy development. So I believe this is a key factors, key reasons for those elephants migrating out of their original homeland.
But Professor Lü, if I could come back to you, you've been working so much on the conservation of the giant panda over the past years. I remember our first conversation, in fact, was about that. That was 20 years ago, believe it or not. At that time, things were not very promising, even though a lot of efforts were being made. But now it's different, right? With more human efforts, it seems that the giant panda has been delisted from the most endangered species to the endangered species. So that's already a temporary success in a way. So Professor Lü, how do you see, these very different approach, giant panda vis-a-vis the wild elephants that we talk about? Both seem to have some successful stories, numbers increased, but very different approach. Yeah. One is nature conservation, the other is maybe humans try to cultivate and release them into the wild. How do you see these different approaches?
Well, the giant panda is also a large mammal, but they depend on bamboo, which is very abundant in the wild. So with certain level of protection, if people don't hunt, if the habitats, the bamboo forests is protected, the population also naturally expand. And relatively, also the pandas moved up to higher populations to try to avoid people. That was the strategy they chose in the past. When people expanded our distribution, and panda moved up to higher elevations, so they can survive still until today. Now with the protection, the habitat expanded also. Available habitats expanded, so more space are made for pandas to survive, and more areas also protected, set up, designated as nature reserves or national parks to ensure panda's long-term survival. So panda, we do have a successful, cheerful story to celebrate. Not only panda, many other species living in the same range together with panda also benefited. Another area that we see a great improvement in conservation is the Tibetan Plateau, which I also worked in past 20 years on snow leopards and other species, large mammals too. And we also see a significant expansion of population, where you also begin to cause conflicts with people. For example, snow leopards will kill yaks, domestic yaks, livestock to eat. And brown bears will break into people's houses to find food. So these are some of the side effects of conservation we have to deal with when, after we protect, animals expand their range. Also, I think there is a behavioral change or adaptation from the animals. They learn quickly. In the past, because people kill animals, so animals learn not to come close to human residents or farms or houses because it's very dangerous. It's risky of life.
Right.
But now killing stopped. Animals quickly learned that it's safe to come closer to people. So that, and find food from people. And human, including crops, the energy from this human food is higher than the natural food in many cases. So they learned gradually to eat more human food, which is not a good thing, actually. If they depend on human food, then they may cause more conflicts with people. That's something we don't want to see.
Yeah, we do not know.
We have to deal with that to separate people and wildlife in a way, including, I think Professor Zhang and his team had done some experiments. He told me the other day that experiments on growing crops that elephants don't like to eat, for example, in the farm.
Yes.
Yeah.
These are fascinating
when
stuff.
People are there for a long time. They cannot be moved,
right.
Easily to elsewhere.
We used to worry there's not enough space for the wild animals to survive, but now with conservation efforts, progress has been made, but now there are new questions being raised, how to coexist, how to not interact
right.
one another, or what should be
right.
the ultimate relationship between human beings and wild animals. Those are fascinating questions, certainly to me, not an expert, but I'm sure to you as experts too. Professor Zhang, your take, finally.
As we know that we got taught wildlife are human beings' friends, but actually they are really wild. They are wild animals. So I believe we need to we need to keep a certain distance, safety distance with wild animals. So although I love elephant, I love panda, but I definitely will keep a certain safe distance with these animals. We are not really close friends, as close as we can get together every day. But with the achievement or successful achievement of conservation in China, wildlife population is increased, and I believe that it's really time for us to think about carefully how to deal with the conflict between, how to balance the conflict between the conservation and the development. As we know that in the past 40 years, China's economy is, well, it's a rapid developing economy. So a lot of elephant or other wildlife habitat disappeared due to the human development activities, settlement, new settlements, and new constructive buildings, and especially in Xishuangbanna, the rubber plantation and the tea plantation replaced or old growth rainforest were elephant habitat for many years. But as we know that in the past 40 years in Xishuangbanna, the old growth forest disappeared about more than 4,000 square kilometers, but rubber tree and tea plantation increased gradually. So that we really need to handle how we balance the conservation and development, and we need to consider how to preserve the lost habitat for not only elephants but also wildlife living in the rainforest. Meanwhile, we still need to consider the needs for local rural development, because the local people, well, they still have a need for their rural economy development. So this situation, not only conservationists need to consider, but a different level of government need to consider.
Right.
So we have a very good policy, such as ecological compensation policy, and we did pay. The government did pay elephant cooperating insurance for local people, but it's not enough. We need to consider more for protective elephant habitat.
You know, this is a fascinating topic. In fact, it is not just about following a herd of 15 wild elephants around, Yunnan and beyond. It is really about the hidden messages behind this story and what it means, how it could be of inspiration for future solutions for all of us. Thank you so much for both of you. I'm looking forward to following both of you in following the stories about these wild animals in now the human areas. Lu Zhi, Zhang Li, thank you so much.